Broncos country, we are live. Welcome to Empower Field at Mile High for this Week 2 matchup, Denver Broncos versus Washington Commanders. I am your host, Gage Madrid, coming at you for a little pregame stream here. Let's just get some people rolling on in here before we officially get started. Let's see if I can get the chat up here. So we got Mark in the chat, says, howdy Broncos country. I live in coastal Georgia. I usually go out to see the Broncos and the Jags play in Jacksonville when they come out this way. I pay about $300 to sit on the visitor's side, third row, back at the 45-yard line. Going to see the Broncos play at Mile High is on my bucket list. That's awesome, Mark. The games here at Mile High are absolutely electric. But getting it down to business here, guys, we do have a football game that we need to win. This is a must-win game for the Denver Broncos today against the Washington Commanders. We were supposed to win last week against the Las Vegas Raiders. That was a game that on paper we were supposed to win, but several self-inflicted wounds between penalties and bad defense and a slight collapse on offense in the second half, that's what ultimately prevented that from happening. This week, we got a lot of stuff we need to clean up, and it's coming against, in my opinion, a slightly harder opponent, especially in the trenches with the Washington Commanders, man. They've got an insane defensive line. Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Chase Young, Martez Sweat, and they have plenty of other depth pieces as well. CM says, go Broncos. Mark says, agreed. Yeah, man, this is going to be a big, big game for us. At the end of the day, what it's going to boil down to is which team wins in the trenches today. Will the Denver Broncos be able to keep Russell Wilson protected against this Washington defensive line? And on the other side of the football, will our defensive line be able to actually generate some pressure? That was something that we really struggled with in Week 1 against the Las Vegas Raiders. We generated virtually zero pressure in that game on Jimmy Garoppolo. And just like Merlot says, Mathis has to hold his water as well in the secondary. That's going to be a big key for us. Welcome in, Merlot. David Johnston in the house says, go Broncos. Let's go Broncos. Again, man, this is a big, big game for us, man. We cannot afford to start off 0-2 going into Miami next week to play the Dolphins. That's a game that's going to be really, really tough for us to win. So we cannot go down there 0-2 and then, quite frankly, be staring right in 0-3's face. I'll take 1-2 as opposed to 0-3 any day, especially going into Chicago Week 4 when it's looking like Justin Fields and the Bears may be a slightly easier opponent than initially thought at the beginning of the season. So that's going to be a big, big key there, is for us to get this win today. And in order to do that, again, we're going to have to win up front, guys. There's no way that we can afford to lose up front like we did against the Raiders. The fact that our defensive line was able to generate zero pressure, both from the interior and on the edge, absolutely disgusting. We cannot let that fly if we're going to beat this Washington team. Now, Washington does have a young quarterback in there in Sam Howell. He's in his second year in the NFL out of NC State, and today he's going to be making his very first road start in the NFL. What a place to make your first road start in Denver with the altitude, the crazy fan atmosphere. That's going to be a really, really big key, is generating that pressure on Sam Howell with our defensive line. I really kind of like how Zach Allen matches up with some of Washington's interior defenders. So we're really going to need Zach Allen to step up today. Jonathan Harris as well, Mike Purcell, DJ Jones, all of those guys. And then on the edge, man, Randy Gregory was virtually non-existent in that Raiders game. Jonathan Cooper was non-existent. And then same with Nick Bonito. I mean, that was an absolute embarrassment. And then don't get me started on Frank Clark. Do not get me started on Frank Clark. I thought that Frank Clark was probably our worst performing defender on Sunday against the Raiders. So I'm looking for a bounce back game from guys such as them. All right, guys. So why don't we think about maybe heading onto the field here for just a second. What's kind of cool, the Broncos today, they were passing out these commemorative Super Bowl rings to honor the Super Bowl 32 team. Or Super Bowl 31, I think, or 32, 30, whatever one it was. The first one against, oh wait, was this the Atlanta one? This is the second one. Yeah, this is the second one against Atlanta, so that'd be Super Bowl 32, I think. But either way, man, they're honoring that team today. I was only 1 year old, or I wasn't even born yet, actually, when that game happened. So, got the Bills beating the Raiders 21-10. That is very good to see. Oh, jeez. If I can sneak through this little barrier here, I can. Cool. But I'm also going to be watching our run game, Broncos country, because the key way for us to slow down the Washington pass rush is going to be to run the football. If we can run the football in this game, that is going to be really key. So I thought we did a really good job of running the football in the first half of last week's game against the Raiders. In the second half is when things kind of started to falter a little bit, and our ground game really kind of started to sputter a little bit in that second half. So if we can consistently run the football for all 4 quarters with Javonte Williams, Samaje Perine, and maybe even some Jaleel McLaughlin sprinkled in there as well. I know Jaleel had a really rough debut in week 1, but I feel like Jaleel needs to get involved in this offense in some capacity. The Broncos are looking for playmaking holes. Blasting that copyright music, baby, so can't stay out here for too long. I don't want the video to get demonetized, but here we go, guys. We are out here on the field. Week 2, Denver Broncos, Washington Commanders. We got our practice squad guys warming up right now. So, another matchup we're going to obviously watch is the Denver Broncos secondary against Washington's plethora of weapons, especially that number 2 boundary corner spot alongside Pat Surtain. There's a strong chance Riley Moss will play in this game, and if Riley Moss plays, then I strongly believe that there's a chance that Damari Mathis could get benched at some point in time this season if he doesn't continue to hold his own, because he's really struggled out there, both in training camp and in the early part of the season here. Washington definitely has some strong weapons. Obviously, Pat Surtain will be locking down Terry McLaurin, but on the other side, Jahan Dotson, Curtis Samuel, De'Ami Brown, they'll be mixing those guys in, obviously. Gabe says, dope view. Thank you, Gabe. Appreciate you tuning in, my friend. Just down here, kind of walking around the lower bowl right now. Soft shell coverage, too high, cover 4, cover 6. And it really forced Russ to throw a lot of underneath throws, take a lot of checkdowns, just take what the defense gave him, essentially. I'm curious to see Washington. They play a lot more aggressive defensively. They play a lot more man coverage. They blitz a lot more. So I'm curious to see if Russell Wilson is going to be able to take advantage of that in this game. He should have a lot more one-on-one matchups to work with. And with their best one-on-one matchup guy and Jerry Jeudy being back, that could bode really well. So Broncos today, guys, are wearing their white jerseys at home. Merlot says Vance Joseph has to show up. Yep. And honestly, at the end of the day, man, I felt like a lot of our struggles on defense weren't so much because of bad play calling on Vance Joseph. He blitzed, we just couldn't get home. At the end of the day, man, you have to wonder how much of this is personnel. How much of this is the guys that we have on the field, man. I feel like Gregory, who got paid the big bucks on the edge. Zach Allen, he says, let's go, let's beat Washington. Mark says the white jerseys are too vanilla. I kind of agree, honestly. I'm afraid that front 7 is going to push us back all day and we won't have any room to run the offense. Yeah, that's definitely fair. A very valid question, especially in the pass rush, but that's not to say Washington's run defense isn't strong either. So at the end of the day, man, if Washington kicks our ass up front in the trenches, then we're not going to have any chance to win this game. DH says we won 2 Super Bowls in the white vanilla. I know. I personally prefer... my favorite uniforms that we have are our all blues, personally. Those are my favorite, but I can also support wearing the white today at home. It is a hot day. It makes Washington, you can see them there, their long snapper and their punter warming up right there. It makes them have to wear their maroon or their burgundy jerseys. So I'm good with that. Gives us a little bit of an advantage here, just not being as scorching hot, but yeah, man, just aesthetically, I definitely am a lot bigger of a fan of our all-blue uniforms for sure. But back to the football side, you got Chase Young over there. You can see him in the gray shirt and white pants with the burgundy socks. He's warming up. Chase Young will be back in this one for Washington. He'll be making his season debut today. So it's going to be really, really interesting to see. He's going to probably be on a pitch count. So some of their other players on that defense, we're obviously going to have to deal with Montez Sweat on the other side on the edge, and then Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne on the interior. This is a must win. I don't care what people think. We lose this, our season's over. I mean, I think that season really does have a strong chance of going south if we lose this game. We got to go to Miami next week. That's not a strong matchup for us. This is a must-win game. However, when you go back and you watch the tape from last week's loss, there's plenty of things to be optimistic about. It's not the same incompetently run team that Nathaniel Hackett coached us into last year. This team actually looks like a real NFL team running a real NFL offense again. And that alone is a big advantage. We got Will Lutz over there warming up. We're going to be also a big storyline to follow is the potential bounce back from the kicking game in this one too. Will Lutz obviously missed a field goal and an extra point last week in a game that we ultimately lost by 1 point. So Will Lutz, at the end of the day, was the main reason why that game was lost against Vegas. So we're going to need a big bounce back day from Will Lutz. We can't afford to miss any kicks in this game and leave any points on the board, because that's what will happen. Leaving points on the board in a low-scoring game is exactly how you lose those kind of games. All right, Broncos country, I'm going to go ahead and dip out of here. I just want to do a quick little pregame stream here. Riley Moss is inactive. That sucks. So we got to, Mathis is going to need to step up. What about Fabian Moreau? Is he active? Because if Fabian Moreau is active, then keep an eye on him. But, all right, guys. We won pretty much the whole game last week. I was just saying stretch is getting very hard. I mean, yeah, but at the end of the day, man, there were plenty of reasons why we lost that game. None bigger than being the kicking game. The white uniforms are clean as hell. I'll be walking my white Sertan jersey today. Right on, right on. I will say, I like the whites a little better with the white socks and undershirts. Here, as you can see, Riley Dixon right there. They're rocking the blue socks and blue undershirts. So, I don't know. I'll take it or leave it. It's not my favorite look that the Broncos wear, and I'm not the hugest fan of wearing white at home. But again, I can understand why they did it on a warm day like today, to make Washington have to wear their burgundies, and also in honor of our Super Bowl team in the final year of John Elway's 10 years. So, all right, guys, I'm going to go ahead and dip out of here. Thank you so much for tuning in, guys. I really appreciate it. Let's get a win today, Broncos country. And score predictions, I'm going to say Denver 21-20. It's going to be a close nail-biter all the way. But Denver, if we can be on our P's and Q's and not leave any points on the board, we will win this game. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, guys, I'm your host, Gage Madrid. Say